This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Gabriella Power. Thank you for your company. President Donald Trump has honoured Irina Zarutska, the 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee who was brutally murdered on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina.
And to allow people into a country who are truly, there are evil people. We're all people of religion, but there are evil people, and we have to confront that. I just give my love and hope to the family of the young woman who was stabbed this morning or last night in Charlotte by a madman, a lunatic, just got up and started. It's right on the tape, not really watchable because it's so horrible, but just viciously stabbed. She's just sitting there. So they're evil people. We have to be able to handle that. If we don't handle that, we don't have a country.
35-year-old DeCarlos Brown Jr. had been arrested 14 times before he allegedly stabbed Irina Zarutska to death. More horrific vision has emerged of this senseless attack. It shows people on the train just watching on, doing nothing. And there's been audio released of DeCarlos Brown Jr. saying, "I got that white girl." This horrific attack took place nearly 3 weeks ago now, and the mainstream media have been silent. It's only after there was enough noise and enough attention brought to this horrific attack on platforms such as X, and the media were being called out for their silence, and Donald Trump was addressing it, that outlets decided they should probably get round to covering it. Like, look at this post on X, for example. This post reached 45 million views before any of the mainstream media outlets started talking about this. And finally, when places such as CNN wanted to finally get to it and talk about this cold-blooded murder, this is the coverage. Here's Erin Burnett making it about Donald Trump.
Horrific new video of a Ukrainian refugee's murder caught on camera. It is absolutely horrific. Trump is now seizing on this to push his nationwide crackdown.
And here is CNN's Abby Phillips suggesting that Conservatives have been waiting for an event as horrific as this.
When you are mentally ill, you have a hard time knowing that you are mentally ill. But also, I mean, people like Charlie Kirk, they've been looking for opportunities to make this some sort of like reciprocal George Floyd situation. And that's the part that I think he's almost giving away the game. And it's sad to see a lot of people going along with it.
I mean, how sick are you? And here is CNN saying that the anger over this murder of an innocent woman is racist.
Some of the replies to Musk, some of the comments around this story are baldly racist, stoking fear of African Americans because this man attacked a white woman.
Now, Politico has finally decided to cover it without showing the video or any of the images of the attack. In fact, it just has a single picture, and that is of Donald Trump. And what about the New York Times? It finally writes about it and it calls it a firestorm on the right. This is the same New York Times that brought you thousands of articles on George Floyd's death, decided to be silent about this murder in Charlotte for weeks, and when they finally bother to cover this story, they make it about the right. It's beyond a joke. It's disgusting. No wonder no one trusts the legacy media anymore. They just choose to write about stories that really suit the narrative that they want to push. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has blasted the media for failing to give this story the coverage it deserves.
Perhaps most shamefully of all, the majority of the media, many outlets in this room, decided that her murder was not worth reporting on originally because it does not fit a preferred narrative. Many of the journalists in this room spilled plenty of ink trying to smear Daniel Penny for defending a subway car from a deranged lunatic in New York City, but none of those same reporters lift a finger to write stories about an actual murderer. Here's the truth that every American must know. Too many innocent people across the country continue to pay the price of the failed experiment known as cashless bail that has been championed by the Democrat Party for years. All the way back in 2020, North Carolina's then Democrat Governor Roy Cooper established a so-called task force for racial equity in criminal justice. Sounds nice, but it's not. That task force was co-authored by then Attorney General and current Democrat Governor Josh Stein. It recommended, quote, reimagining public safety to, quote, promote diversion and other alternatives to arrest. It also advised to de-emphasize some felony crimes, prioritize, quote, restorative justice, and eliminate cash bail. Democrats in North Carolina and nationwide are consumed with pushing a woke, soft-on-crime agenda, no matter how many innocent Americans suffer as a result.
Joining us now is Jeff Cruer, broadcaster and commentator. Jeff, thanks so much for your time. We've just heard from Caroline Levitt blasting the media and the Democrats for being soft on crime, and DeCarlos Brown Jr. has now been federally charged with one count of committing an act causing death on a mass transportation system. He's facing life in prison or even the death penalty. Listen to this.
Now, DeCarlos Brown Jr., who we allege stabbed Erna Sarutska, is in state custody on first-degree murder charges. But I'm here today to announce that we're going to supplement those state charges with federal charges. These federal charges will go alongside the murder case in state court, and we hope that they will ensure justice for Erna, for her family, and for the whole Charlotte community. The maximum penalty for this federal crime is life in prison without parole or the death penalty. Of course, each individual case receives its own sentencing hearing by a federal judge that will decide the sentence based on the individual factors in this case.
Jeff, this is just such a horrific story. The fact that this man had been arrested 14 times before that horrific attack in Charlotte, it's so frustrating. Can I get your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's really gripped the nation. I mean, this is what everybody is talking about. And what is shameful is that the national media did not cover this story for weeks. Mm-hmm. And it took social media influencers, it took conservative broadcasters to elevate this story to something that President Trump was asked about. And now these other networks are reluctantly covering this. It is just a tragedy in so many different respects, an indictment of our criminal justice system. As you said, 14 times this guy was arrested. It shows the media is not covering the real news in our country. And also, it just verifies what President Trump is trying to do and clean up the cities across our nation. I just spent some time in New York, and I can tell you, it's scary to ride the subway. It's scary to go on some city buses. And this is what we see in Charlotte, and this is what we see in a lot of our urban areas across the country. So we need a crime crackdown. It's working in D.C. We need to bring it across the country. And we need to have a criminal justice system that works so someone is not out on the streets harming innocent people like this poor young girl who was fleeing a war zone to come to the United States to live, hopefully, a peaceful life. She wasn't killed in Ukraine, but she was killed here. It's just so tragic on so many different levels.
No, absolutely. It's devastating. Now, North Carolina Democratic Governor Josh Stein finally broke his silence over the murder. He wrote in a post, "I'm heartbroken for the family of Irina Zarutska, who lost their loved one to this senseless act of violence, and I'm appalled by the footage of her murder. We need more cops on the beat to keep people safe. That's why my budget calls for more funding to hire more well-trained police officers. I call upon the legislature to pass my law enforcement recruitment and retention package to address vacancies in our state and local agencies so they can stop these horrific crimes and hold violent criminals accountable." Now, he's getting absolutely slammed for writing something like this. People are writing on places such as X, "What on earth are you talking about, Governor? DeCarlos Brown was arrested 14 times. The police did their job. It's your job to sign into law bills that keep career criminals in jail." Others wrote the police already had arrested him. The problem is that Democrats keep releasing him. You are tone deaf, Governor. Another person wrote that the idea that you are using the tragic killing of this young woman to advance your bill is despicable. Can I get your reaction, Jeff?
No, I mean, I couldn't agree with these critics more. I mean, it is an indictment of our criminal justice system. These judges are allowing these criminals to go back out on the streets. I mean, the police did their job. That's exactly right. Arrested over and over and over again. And the judges kept releasing him over and over and over again. And now a young woman is killed, should not have been, because this guy was not behind bars like he should have been. And this happens all over the country. This happens in my hometown of New Orleans, where we have liberal judges constantly releasing criminals onto the streets that then go out and kill people. New York, all the other big cities in our country. So, Yeah, our criminal justice system is broken. That's why we need help from the Trump administration to try to fix it. And really what we're trying to do is help the people that live in those communities live a safe life so they can go about their business, travel on public transportation, live a normal existence without constantly being in fear of criminals.
I want to move on to another story that's come out today. The Bureau of Labor Statistics admitted that more than 900,000 jobs that Joe Biden claimed to have created were never actually created at all. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has revised down their job numbers from April 2024 to March 2025 by 911,000 jobs. Now, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that the revision on record proves that President Trump was right and that Biden's economy was a disaster. Jeff, this means that there were virtually no jobs created in the last year of the Biden administration.
Well, it was all a lie. The president should have fired the BLS director because they were using phony numbers. Obviously, they were trying to prop up Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and help them win election. President Trump inherited a bad economy. I mean, the narrative was that Biden and Harris did such a great job for the economy. Look at these jobs. Well, they're phantom jobs. They didn't exist. And you had Jerome Powell helping, and that's the Federal Reserve chair, helping Biden and Harris by lowering interest rates. Now he's not doing it. He's trying to hurt the Trump administration. So we had a rigged system in 2024 trying to help Biden and Harris win. Thankfully, the American people saw through it. Because, you know, even though the stats said the economy was doing well, I think people felt that it wasn't. And they knew that there was something wrong. And that's why they elected Donald Trump, because they wanted to change.
Well, let's talk about the Democrats and who they're defending at the moment. Last week, the US military hit a Venezuelan boat in the southern Caribbean carrying drugs to America. So 11 suspected Tren de Agua narco-terrorists were killed in the strike, and Vice President J.D. Vance wrote on X, killing cartel members who poison our fellow citizens is the highest and best use of our military. But of course, anti-Trump personalities have kind of hit back at this. One person claimed killing the citizens of another nation who are civilians without any due process is called a war crime. And of course, J.D. Vance hit back saying, I don't give a beep. I think J.D. Vance is right about this. I mean, who are the Democrats trying to defend here?
The Democrats' constituency are criminals, illegal aliens. Their poster child is Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
Yeah.
They're all worried about these drug dealers that were blown away by our military, that they didn't get due process. They were bringing poison into our country to kill Americans. So the Democrats, those are the people the Democrats care about. They don't care about the people that are victims of crime, the people that are trying to make a living, the law-abiding folks. They're focused on the criminals and the illegals. And that's just the difference between the two parties. And we're going to see this play out over the next year until the midterm elections. But this is a winning strategy for the Trump administration. Close the border, deal with the illegal immigration problem here, and try to stop the flow of drugs into our country and declare war on the cartels. And I think we're really getting serious in going after the drug cartels now.
Absolutely. Look, I want to talk to you about what is happening with Gen Z, because it appears that Gen Z men who backed Donald Trump last year rated having children at the top of a list of choices of how to define personal success. Yet, I don't know if you'll be surprised by this, Jeff, but Gen Z women who backed Kamala Harris rated it to second last. So this is according to the latest NBC News Decision Desk poll powered by SurveyMonkey, which shows how the political gender gap persists alongside different social beliefs between young men and young women. So let's just look at the top priorities for these Gen Z women who apparently voted for Kamala Harris. Number one, having a job or career that you find that you find fulfilling. Look, obviously that's important. I don't know if it needs to be number one. Number two, having enough money to do the things that you want. Number three, achieving financial independence. 4, having emotional stability. 5, using your talents and resources to help others. Owning your own home is number 6. Number 7, having no debt. Number 8, being spiritually grounded. 9, making your family or community proud. And then all the way down to number 10. That is where these Gen Z women have ranked putting children. That's their list of priorities, all the way down to number 10. And then after that, number 11 is being married. Jeff, can I get your thoughts on that? I mean, number 10 in terms of what success looks like. What do you put this down to? Is it the rise of the feminism movement? I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
Yes. No, it definitely is a rise of feminism. You've seen, I think, women take a greater interest in a career than getting married and having children. That they view that as not progressive. They view that as being, traditional, old-fashioned. And I think you see it in the election results. I mean, if the election were just women, Republicans would never win. I mean, Donald Trump did very well among young men. He did very poorly among young women. So there's a massive gender gap that's getting bigger as the years go by. So that is a problem. I mean, the United States is not having the kind of fertility rate that we need to replicate our population and to grow our country. So I know people like Elon Musk and others are very worried about that. And I think it is a very serious problem. So I don't know what it's going to take to bring men and women together politically, to have interest in having families again. But right now, it's not there. And just from my observations of traveling around, it looks like the marriage rate is going down. It looks like people are staying single longer. Mm-hmm. And if they do get married, fewer are having kids. And certainly you're not seeing the kind of larger families that you had. Like, I come from a family of 6. You don't see that very often at all anymore in our country.
Yeah, same here in Australia. The birth rate decline is a huge problem. Look, I want to talk to you about Donald Trump speaking at the Museum of the Bible in Washington yesterday. And he was also bringing a new focus to news that the Biden administration weaponized the federal government against Christians, including the pro-life movement. Now, this task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias is chaired by Attorney General Pam Bondi. And after a preliminary review of federal agencies and departments, the task force uncovered numerous instances of anti-Christian bias during the Biden administration. Jeff, what more can you tell us about this?
No, there's no doubt that that is accurate. The FBI was targeted to go after Christians, to go after traditional Catholics, to go after pro-life supporters, throwing people in jail that were protesting outside abortion clinics, considering those that went to Latin Mass as being potential terrorists. I mean, it's obscene what was really done in the Biden administration to go after traditional religious conservative Christians. And I'm glad the president is bringing it up. I'm glad he's talking about anti-Christian bias. You don't hear that much from political leaders about that. And I'm glad the president's bringing it up. And there's also discrimination against Christians that's going on in many countries around the world. They're being targeted, they're being persecuted, and sadly, in many cases, being killed. So hopefully this will lead to more attention on that important issue.
Absolutely. Finally, Bill Maher has admitted that Donald Trump actually had a point about liberal elitist institutions such as Harvard exposing the university's diversity myth. Listen to this.
Yes, you can move too far left. And when you do, you wind up pushing the people in the middle to the right. At its worst, Canada is what American voters think happens when there's no one putting a check on extreme wokeness. They say in politics, liberals are the gas pedal and conservatives are the brakes. And I'm generally with the gas pedal, but not if we're driving off a cliff. Sweden opened its borders to over 1.5 million immigrants since 2010, and now 20% of its citizens are foreign-born, and its education system is tanking, and it has Europe's highest rate of gangland killings. To which liberals say blaming immigrants for the rising crime rate is racist. Yeah, but is it true? Of course it's true. It's not a coincidence the quality of life went down after the Somali gangs started a drug turf war using hand grenades. Calling it racist doesn't solve the problem.
Jeff, can I get your reaction?
I love the fact that Bill Maher every now and then speaks 100% the truth. Ever since he had dinner with Donald Trump, he has sort of been red-pilled. I mean, he's sort of moving to a more sensible direction. I mean, he used to be so far left. I mean, we couldn't even relate to him. But now he's speaking common sense on a lot of issues. And I'm glad to see it because he's a popular talk show host. He has a big audience. And maybe he's influencing some of these people that are watching him to see things differently. We certainly don't see it with the late night comedians. They're hopeless. But I think Bill Maher is someone that has really seen the light on a lot of these issues. So I'm glad to see it.
Jeff Cruer, thank you so much for your time. Love having you on Power Hour.
Thanks for having me.
It's time for Media Meltdowns, and Australia's 60 Minutes has dedicated almost 20 minutes airing an interview with Rosie O'Donnell, where she opened up about her severe case of Trump derangement syndrome, a case so bad that it caused her to flee America all the way to Ireland when Donald Trump was duly elected. And Rosie O'Donnell admits that no one's stopping her over there for a photo or an autograph.
Best with celebrities. If they see you, they go, hey. Or they'll say, welcome. Nobody says, can I have a picture? Can I have an autograph?
Nobody.
They literally want to welcome you. And, you know, when I
wonder why that might be, but with a straight face, Rosie O'Donnell paints this delusional picture that she doesn't like to fight publicly, and she's currently in what she calls a calm period of her life.
For me, fighting and arguing is not the way I want to live or entertain. It's not the way I want to make money. It's you know, even though I, when pushed, will go there, I don't like to go there. And I'm trying in my old age to keep it all calm and to be around as long as I can.
Are you sure about that?
I think so. Did it ring untrue to you?
Well, I do think you make headlines a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yes. Well, when it comes to democracy dying in America, I'm not silent. And when it comes to the president right now and what his actions are and who he is innately, I am not quiet.
There it is, that lie that America is no longer a democracy, and she made that claim several times throughout the interview. But this so-called calm Rosie, who claims she's fighting for democracy, just last week went on the Jim Acosta show to express her disappointment that Donald Trump wasn't killed during the assassination attempt in Butler.
And his assassination attempt, a man died during that assassination attempt. Yeah. A man died.
Yeah.
And it wasn't him.
Yeah.
And his ear miraculously healed, ladies and gentlemen. Will anyone in the news ever say that without couching it? Yeah. His ear miraculously regenerated. People, what else do you need?
I mean, what a class act. There's more of Rosie's so-called calm era. Here she is warning about the safety of the world under Donald Trump.
Well, listen, it's very sad to me what's happening in the United States. Yeah. It's overwhelmingly depressing, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And I fear for the safety of the world.
Yeah.
And he is a dangerous man.
Yeah.
And he's trying to shut up any dissent. He's trying to erase Black culture, gay culture. He's trying to make a white separatist nation. And we cannot allow him to do that.
I agree with you.
Unhinged.
1,000%.
Joining us now is Adam Crichton, Chief Economist at the IPA. Adam, it is great to see you again. I'm sorry for putting you through that, but we've heard a lot from Rosie O'Donnell. I mean, she sat down on 60 Minutes insisting that she's calm, yet, of course, claiming several times that democracy is dying in America. And she states that as if it's fact. And she was pressed on her claims that she's, you know, not really calm. But she wasn't really pressed on this claim of hers, and she's not alone in making this claim that democracy is dying. But what's your reaction to all of this? What do you make of Rosie O'Donnell opening up to Australians about her TDS?
Well, look, I just feel sorry for her, really. She comes across as a lunatic, I think, surely. The claims she makes are just factually untrue. I mean, she said something there about a white ethno state or something, and yet Donald Trump did the best amongst Black voters in the United States, I think, for many generations for a Republican.
Yes.
And then she also said something about hating gays. Well, he's the first president to hire a gay Treasury Secretary. So these claims are just completely ridiculous. And sadly, people do have this TDS. And there is this belief on the left, amongst extreme elements of the left, that he's trying to create some sort of dictatorship. But there's just no evidence of that. There's not a dictatorship in the US. He won the election fair and square. He won 7 swing states. So she might like she might not like that outcome, but that is the reality, I'm afraid. And she's probably going to have to get used to it for maybe another 6 years if J.D. Vance does end up succeeding Donald Trump as president.
Yes, and I'm sure she's not going to slow down with some of her comments. We'll keep playing them here just to torture everybody. But look, on a more serious note, of course, we have to turn to what is the biggest story in the United States at the moment, which should have been the biggest story weeks ago, this horrific murder of a Ukrainian refugee, Irina Zarutska, allegedly murdered by a man who'd been arrested 14 times. And of course, the media was silent. And now the coverage on outlets such as CNN is just absolutely appalling, describing the outrage that is being expressed as racist. And here is White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller blasting the Democrats for these catch and release policies of theirs.
And then you look at that video that chills our very souls out of Charlotte, that beautiful young woman stabbed to death, murdered savagely on a subway, just trying to get home from work, fleeing war, only to run into a Democrat war zone here in our country. That monster, 14 prior arrests in and out. The Democrat policies of catch and release for barbarians and savages is truly an act of terror, Sean, against the American people. It cannot be explained unless you deeply, fundamentally hate America.
Adam, I want to get your thoughts on the media in a moment, but also just Stephen Miller's points just there. He really has a point, and there's a lot of focus on the fact that this man was able to, well, he was arrested more than a dozen times before this attack took place.
Well, yes, look, and just 14 times, and I think some of the crimes were violent crimes, and yet he was still out. So this story is huge indeed. There are so many facets and aspects to it, but certainly the questions about the judicial system is a grave one and a serious one. I note the governor of the relevant state, North Carolina, has taken almost 2 weeks to say anything about this, including the state's attorney general, because they are complicit. It's their judiciary, it's their judges, and the judge let this guy out. And now this has happened. I mean, it's shocking. I think there needs to be a massive review. But the bigger question here, of course, is what this says about the US media. I mean, it's a very dark day for the US media. It's a massive humiliation. I think even for the most left-wing journalists on these big broadsheets over there, they must be ashamed because it's shown them up as what they are. They are propagandists, and they only publish the news that they want people to know about. And they only, basically, when it comes to crime, the only crime they want to know about is basically white crime on black.
Yes.
And that is just so clearly obvious, so patently obvious. I mean, here's a story, with a video. It's horrific. It's shocking. I mean, by the standards of the media, it should have been a huge story straight away, but there was no reporting on it. And the first time I thought, I saw this last Friday on Twitter, and I thought, oh my God, this is going to be huge. And then 1 day went past, still nothing from the mainstream media. 2 days went past, still nothing. And then, of course, it just got so big on social media that they had to report on it in the end through clenched teeth, obviously. But that made it even worse, in my view, because they didn't even care much about the crime. It was about how the crime supposedly radicalised MAGA. I mean, it just made them look even worse. And, of course, the New York Times, in its one piece, and, of course, it had about 300 pieces, I think, on the white guy, Daniel Penny, who accidentally killed a guy on a train in New York trying to protect someone.
Yes.
They had hundreds of stories on that, but 0 stories on this, except for one. And then in that one story, it was black with a capital B and white with a small W. I mean, it's just, they just basically, they were racist. Their reporting is racist, reverse racist against white people. There is no other way to put it.
And it's completely obvious, as you say, the media, it picks and chooses the stories or murders that they want to cover based on a narrative. And it's interesting, of course, with George Floyd's death, that went viral. There was wall-to-wall media coverage over there. And, of course, as a result of George Floyd's death, there were then protests in the street. They turned into wild riots. People were uploading black signatures to their Instagram pages. We saw people in Hollywood filming themselves crying, but silence, completely different story for this Ukrainian refugee.
Yeah, and also it's just worth pointing out too, with those riots, the so-called George Floyd riots, they were fanned and fueled by the mainstream media, right? They weren't really organic, right? So the media has a hand in those. So they're very powerful still. They can make people angry and furious about certain things, and they only choose to do that when there's a crime of a white person on a black person.
Yeah,
that's almost universally the case. And when I was in the US for 4 years, this is not the only case of this. I'd see all sorts of local crimes and think, gosh, that's a horrific crime, and it's generally a black person or a white person. I remember one distinctly a group of black youths ran over a white cyclist on purpose, and they filmed it all and laughed about it. It was just shocking, and yet there was no reporting on it in the mainstream press, none. But just imagine for 1 second if the colour of the skin had been reversed. Just imagine, it would have been a huge story for months. And I think the journalists at these publications really need to look at themselves. What is their purpose? Are they reporting the news, or is it propaganda?
No.
Just choose one, please.
It's propaganda, and I think, as you say, they've been exposed now. Everyone can see absolutely right through this, and it also goes to the power of platforms such as X. So many people are on social media now, and because of I suppose, even conservative influences, even Elon Musk was talking about this horrific murder days ago. People were actually able to know what's going on, and then also realising, hang on, this isn't being reported on at all. Not in the New York Times, not on CNN, not ABC. All those places have only finally caught up. Now, of course, it's reached the point where Trump has been speaking about it, but it's absolutely shocking, and it's just obvious. Now, moving on to the Democrats, this photo is going viral of Bernie Sanders, AOC and Mamdani. They really are the stars of the left right now, which says so much. But Adam, it's interesting, there are reports that AOC's campaign has reportedly spent thousands of dollars at ritzy hotels while headlining the Fighting Oligarchy tour with Bernie Sanders. Of course, AOC's campaign shelled out apparently $3,500 alone at the Vdara Hotel and Spa in Las Vegas during the tour. And it's no surprise, really. It just reminds me of Bernie Sanders refusing to fly commercial, insisting that he had to get private jets while he fights oligarchy.
Yeah, certainly. Look, I think more and more Americans are seeing the level of hypocrisy here and double standards, and whatever the Democrats are doing right now, it's not working. I mean, Trump basically wiped them out in the presidential election. And, sure, President Trump himself doesn't have the best popularity rating, but if you look at the Democrats' popularity rating at the moment in the US, it's lower than it's been for decades. I think the approval rating for the party is something like 30%. So, there's lots of Democrats out there hoping that in the midterm elections next year that Republicans do badly. But I think actually the Republicans could do quite well, because whatever the Democrats are serving up, most Americans are not liking it. They still have quite extreme social policies. Their foreign policy is very confused, and there's so much hypocrisy about wealth. I mean, the top 10 seats by wealth in the US Congress are all held by Democrats, which is quite funny, and yet they make out that they're the champion of the poor. This is no longer the case, right? This is no longer the case. If any party is a champion of the poor in the US right now, it's more the Republican Party than the Democrats.
Absolutely. Look, let's talk about what's going on in the UK. Comedian Graham Lanham has lashed out at UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer for being a weak leader. Now, he was arrested at Heathrow Airport last week for the tweets that he posted on X, and he told Meghan Kelly that he can no longer relax while he's in the UK, and he's always kind of looking over his shoulder. Take a listen to this.
And these men have the police wrapped around their fingers. Not just me who's been arrested. There's been, several dozens of women arrested in the UK over the last 8 years. And again, these women are suffering in silence because no one with any authority will stand up to them. Keir Starmer came into power saying that he would end the culture wars, but he hasn't. He's just hid from them.
I mean, this story of a comedian arrested over tweets, it's gone round the world. It's unbelievable when you think about free speech. Where is it in the UK? Now, these comments also come as Keir Starmer's approval rating back at home in the UK is among the lowest of any Western leader, according to the latest poll. And of course, reform is right ahead.
Just on Keir Starmer, he's probably the worst Prime Minister the UK's had in the last 60 years. So his disapproval rating, is very well deserved, I would say. I mean, it's not only the attacks on free speech, which are actually horrific. I mean, there are more people now being arrested for online in the UK than in Russia, far more. And I just hope Australians are looking at these so-called online safety laws, which give the UK police the power to arrest people for racist remarks or whatever. I mean, sure, we don't like racist remarks, but should people really be arrested for them and go to jail? I think most Australians would say no, and certainly most Britons too. But that is the law of the land over there now. And it's very scary because it's only going to get worse. They'll be reading your private messages. They'll be reading your WhatsApp messages soon. That's what governments would like to do, right? So it's a totalitarian mindset. And, the sad part for me is that the UK and the West is becoming more and more like China, not the other way around. China was meant to become more like us, but we are definitely becoming more like them. That is totally clear. Our governments are getting bigger and more powerful all the time, and the UK is at the vanguard of that, very sadly, because it was the home of free speech, at least at one point. So it's very sad to see. So, he deserves his low rating, and then, we can talk about immigration over there too, which is completely out of control, and the British people are fed up with that.
Isn't it? And we're seeing the protests, people taking to the streets, and of course they are. When you look at the numbers, more than 50,000 since Starmer's been in a position of power, what that does to a country, no wonder you're seeing mothers, you're seeing women of all ages going out and protesting, because there's also been, reports of sexual assaults taking place. It's horrific.
Well, one stat's amazing. So in 2016, the British people voted to leave the EU, and the main reason they voted to leave the EU was basically to lower immigration. They were sick of all the high immigration. And so what happened since that vote? No, immigration went up dramatically. So both parties, Labor and the Tories, let in, since 2021, about 4 million new people into the UK.
Wow.
And of course, they weren't from the EU. They were from Africa, the Middle East and Asia. So people got less immigration from the EU, and they got a hell of a lot more from everywhere else in the world. And quite often those cultures coming into the UK weren't as great a fit, shall we say. And yes, there are riots now in the UK, and I think the country's in a crisis. And, frankly, neither party have been willing to do much about it. And so, as you pointed out earlier, the Reform Party is now the most popular party in the UK. And if those polls are true at the next election, then the Tories and Labor will be wiped out.
Yeah, isn't it interesting to see? And, you look at what's going on in the UK, it makes so much sense that Nigel Farage is ahead in the polls. Adam Crichton, thank you so much for your time. Brilliant to speak to you, as always.
Thanks very much.
Joining us now is Andrew Eborn, barrister and broadcaster, and of course, president of Octopus TV. It is so wonderful to see you. Thank you for joining us again.
Always a pleasure, Gabrielle. The highlight of my week.
Mine too. Let's talk about what is going on in the UK, where Prince William and Prince Harry were just kilometres away from one another as they paid separate tributes to Queen Elizabeth on the 3rd anniversary of her death. Now, the Prince of Wales opened up about the cheeky antics of his younger son, Prince Louis, at the Federation of the Women's Institute. And at the same time, Prince Harry was touching down at Heathrow Airport all the way from California, and he, of course, laid a wreath and flowers at his late grandmother's grave in St George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. Andrew, they were so close, but no meeting, of course.
Oh, I know. So close and yet so far. Less than 10 miles. Elizabeth, Britain's longest reigning monarch, she died aged 96 on September the 8th, 2022. It was the 3rd anniversary. She died at Balmoral Castle, as you know. And basically, they honoured her separately. So Prince William and Kate went along and honoured the Queen visiting a women's institute, which is very key to her late Majesty's heart. She basically cherished them for over 80 years. And she'd also been president of the branch near her Sandringham home in Eastern England from 2003 until her death. Prince Harry, in the meantime, he went to Windsor Castle, where I'm going to be next week with a certain visit. But no meeting was expected between the brothers, even though it's only 10 miles away. And as I always say, Gabrielle, it is a real shame because Her Majesty and indeed Diana would have absolutely loved for the brothers to be back together.
Of course, of course. Now, Prince Harry has made a veiled reference to the challenges thrown our way in a major speech at the annual Well Child Awards. Harry used the speech to commend the courage of the children with complex medical needs, before also touching on his own challenges. Andrew, what do you make of this?
Well, it's one of these sort of sly digs, isn't it? Shakespearean elements going on here. Harry was at this Well Child event, which he's been going to for the last several years, and he was speaking about how challenging relationships between siblings are at this glitzy charity bash. He basically joked and laughed with some seriously ill children at the Well Child Award, and it marks his 4-day event here in the UK. And he was talking to somebody called Declan Bitmead, who's 17, who was the winner of the Inspirational Young Person 15 to 28-year-old award, about his family and his brother. And Harry said, does he drive you mad? And Declan replied, no, we get on fine. Harold said, well, you know what, siblings. So he clearly worked on that sort of basis. He was also told they went to the same school. And Harry said, well, you're at the same school. That makes it more challenging. So clearly the references between the ongoing feud between Harry and William, every opportunity. But if only they were, you'll also see some glorious footage of Harry fighting with some of the children with balloon swords. Well, I think it's more the dagger in the back of his brother on this particular event.
That certainly sounds like it. Now, of course, Meghan Markle is not in the UK, but her family drama continues to haunt her long after her royal exit. In 2022, the Duchess of Sussex estranged half-sister Samantha Markle sued Meghan Markle for allegedly defaming her in multiple interviews, including that 2021 tell-all with Oprah Winfrey. Now, the case was dismissed in 2024, but she's appealing the dismissal, so of course fighting back against Meghan. What can you tell us about this?
Well, you're absolutely right. It's this sad defamation, as though we have one family tragedy, would be too many. We've now got two, and Meghan and her ongoing fight with her half-sister and her father continue to dominate the headlines. Basically, during that wonderful, famous, I say wonderful, that interview, that infamous interview with Oprah, she said, quite. I grew up as an only child, and you're telling people you raised me. I don't remember seeing her when I was a kid at my house, even when they would come round. Samantha's alleging the statements basically was about hateful misinformation. She's saying that it's defamatory. The court in the first instance said, well, look, there's not enough combined to make it a defamation case. So they threw it out with what's called with prejudice, and so you couldn't come back. She's appealing her right to do it. And she basically is saying that she's being portrayed as a lying, racist fame seeker who's out to harm Meghan and capitalised on that harm caused. And the reality is this, is that the more you get this feud being fought out in courts, the more those allegations tend to stick. And so you're getting exactly that sort of basis. The headlines are reporting it, but the ongoing saga, yet another chapter with more megalomania. They're going to dig out all of those insults. They're going to keep referencing the with love Meghan. Well, I can tell you there's no love lost between those two.
Absolutely not. Now, Prince Andrew's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is causing another headache for King Charles, and this is as he prepares to host a state dinner with US President Donald Trump. Now, Prince Andrew is reportedly off the guest list at Windsor Castle. Now, Andrew, that is a smart decision, I would say.
A very smart decision, I think, with all sorts of files being released at the moment and people being associated around the world, obviously associations, some of which those people are denying. But clearly, Prince Andrew is no longer a serving royal. The president is going to be coming over here. The first time a president has come for the second term. Normally what happens for the second term, the king and queen, the monarch, invite them round for a cup of tea. But he's having yet another state banquet. It's being held in Windsor Castle. I'm actually going to be over the road. There's going to be an event there, and we're hoping that the president might pop in and say hello and says how much he enjoys my little section on your show.
Oh,
But I will be in Windsor at the time. Sort of, no doubt it was on same time next week. I can report on what's going on there. But the reality is exactly that. Prince Andrew is not on the guest list. It's too embarrassing. He wouldn't be there because he's no longer a serving royal anyway. And I'm sure that President Trump will be won't necessarily miss Prince Andrew this time.
No, I think you're right there. Look, finally, Buckingham Palace has announced the funeral of the Duchess of Kent will be held at Westminster Cathedral on September 16, and of course the King and the Queen will be among senior royals who will be in attendance. But Andrew, this is going to be the first Catholic funeral for a member of the royal family in modern history, is that right?
No, absolutely. So Catherine, Duchess of Kent, she was a much loved royal. She died on September the 4th, and she was 92, and she died at Kensington Palace. She's going to have a requiem mass. It's the first Catholic. It's going to happen on September the 16th at Westminster Cathedral. It's the first royal funeral in modern history, reflecting her conversion. She had a conversion in 1994. It's unsure because Harry's over here at the moment. He may extend his visit and do that. We've had no reports yet that he's actually met with Charles. He has made announcements about big donations that he's made, including to children in need, about £1.1 million, huge amount of money. So he's been doing that. I hope that he does stay for the funeral. He has got a sort of history for staying. Basically, the Duchess of Kent, was, you might remember, at his marriage to Meghan Markle in 2018, and they were also the neighbours at Kensington Palace. So he clearly was close to her, and I very much hope that he will attend the funeral. But as you say, it is going to be the first Catholic funeral for some time, the first Catholic royal funeral, but a much-loved royal, and she's sorely missed.
Andrew Eborn, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. It is brilliant to speak to you as always. Looking forward to your reports next week.
Looking forward to it, Gabriella, as always.
And that is Power Hour. Thank you for your company. We'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe to Sky News Australia on YouTube.